Okay, so just for a chortle, perhaps during lockdown, you collect a little sample of your car's engine oil and you send it off to the lab for analysis. Just like a deleted scene from CSI or something. And then a couple of days later, they get back to you and they say, Houston, we might have a problem. Let us drill down into that and talk about what you should really do. Details next. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au and I get new cars cheap. For buyers here in Australia. Website for that, obviously, or you could just click the card that may or may not appear sort of somewhere, up there now, dude. Now, this report is inspired by a question from a loyal auto expert viewer, a dude named Decker Lundquist. Yes. I so wish there were a third pole on Earth yet to be discovered. A dude named Decker Lundquist could find it. And to Decker, I would say respectfully, she does love it, dude. That's a guarantee. You can take that one to the bank. Anyway, Decker goes, as an exercise in satisfying my curiosity, I recently ordered an engine oil analysis kit and sent off a sample of my car's oil to be tested. I received the report a few days later, which stated that they had detected 3% fuel dilution in the oil sample, and it recommended that I change the oil and have the car checked over by my mechanic for a fuel system problem such as a bad injector. Oh no. The car's a 2018 Lexus with a 2GR-FKS V6 engine. It has less than 45,000 Ks on the clock. It's been very well looked after and has always been serviced according to the manufacturer's servicing schedule. Yes! Well done, dude. It is 6 months away from its next scheduled oil change. I have driven it little more than 2,000 kilometres over the past year. #COVID. And the driving has been almost exclusively very short trips. My question is this. Could all the short trips during the past 12 months of COVID lockdowns have caused more oil dilution than would normally be expected to show up on the test? Or does the 3% fuel dilution result in does it clearly signal a problem that needs to be identified and fixed? I hope that came through loud and clear. Christ only knows. My warranty ends early next year, and if the car has a problem, I want to get the dealership onto it. Regards, Decker Lundquist, future finder of the third pole. Well done, Decker. Excellent question. Dude, I'll get into that in just a second. If you're worried about the different format of this show, it's just because, the clock is ticking and I have to hit the road and drive for 2 hours down to Goulburn to do a super secret track drive exercise for the day. Someone's got to do it and my name is on this assignment. So you'll have to excuse the lack of preparedness. And I must tell you that this video is sponsored by Olight, who are excellent supporters of this channel. There's a sale starting tomorrow night, Thursday the 25th at 8 p.m. and running for the next 5 days or so, whence you will see excellent new torches like this Warrior X3, which is kind of an upgrade. It's got this really clever finger retention jigger on the side. Not sure how I feel about that at this stage, but I'm pretty sure how I feel about how friggin' bright it is. It's 2,500 lumens, which must be very, very disorienting if you're on the receiving end of it. And it's also got, I don't know if you can see it there. I don't know if it'll focus on this. Yes, we have focus. It's got these 3 really clever zirconium ball bearings embedded into the bezel, so it breaks glass, and that means this is an excellent automotive rescue tool. That's something to bear in mind. Also, Javelot Pro 2, and dude, this thing is a frigging searchlight, literally. So awesome for the 4-wheel drive, the boat, for search generally, long range, looking at this and that. It's a great hunting torch as well. They make a rifle attachment kit for this jigger, and it sends a really tight beam hell of a long way. So there's that. Link in the description, but if you're an early viewer of my content, wait 24 hours because the sale kicks off at 8 p.m. Now, this oil analysis thing, Decker, dude, don't worry. I don't think your car has a problem. I think you went looking and found something, and the way labs work, they go, ooh, more than, 1.5%. We better cut and paste this piece of text in here just to cover our asses. What I'd suggest is that engines work like this, okay? When you start cold, they're not very efficient. Like, the parts are all the wrong size because they're designed to thermally expand and be the right size when they're at their operating temperature. And I'm talking about piston and bore clearances, ring clearances, things of that nature, all right? And just hold that thought. So the pistons are the wrong size for the bores and the rings are the wrong size, and, dogs and cats living together for the first few seconds. And then we're still up against the age-old problem. Like, do you remember the 70s? When you had a choke to pull out like this, and the purpose of the choke was literally inlet air, okay? And what that does is basically make the mixture really lean. And that's just because cars don't want to run when they're cold. They like running when they're warm. And you can smell it when the choke's out, right? It smells really rich. And cars still do that, but they're digitally controlled. So the richness of the initial mixture is somewhat less than you might have, done with the choke when you learnt to drive as a kid or something. But they still run rich, which means that there's not enough oxygen, like there's not enough air to deliver enough oxygen to burn all of the fuel that is going into them when they're cold. And this means the exhaust is full of unburned hydrocarbons, okay? Now, the exhaust that goes out the tailpipe, that's fine. That's dealt with by the catalytic converter. And they only run like that for a few seconds anyway, from dead cold. And then they lean out and they get back to approaching a stoichiometric sort of ratio where all of the fuel gets burned. And engine designers are always in this mixture sort of quandary where they've got Goldilocks. And on the rich side of Goldilocks, you're committing too many unburned hydrocarbons into the exhaust. And up on the lean side of Goldilocks, you've got oxides of nitrogen. And oxides of nitrogen are bad for human health, essentially. So they're dealt with by the catalytic converter as well. But in the Goldilocks mixture state, you minimise both of those things. Unburned hydrocarbons for rich and oxides of nitrogen for lean, all right? When your car is cold, it's producing lots of unburned hydrocarbons, and the clearances between the pistons, the rings and the bores is suboptimal. And what this does is it allows blow-by. So some of that gas under pressure, it's compressed and expanding rapidly, jamming the piston down, and some of it blows past the rings and gets into the crankcase, where it cools down rapidly and the unburned hydrocarbons dissolve into the oil. And this leads to the phenomenon of oil dilution with fuel. The other thing that happens often is oil dilution with water, because when you burn hydrocarbons, the main combustion products are CO2 and H2O, and obviously the water comes off as steam because it's really hot in there, and steam is a clear, colourless gas. It blows down there, it gets cooler, it condenses, and then it gets sort of whizzed up in the blender of the crankcase, and often when you get diluted oil, it's got fuel and water in it, okay? And I'd suggest that if you're doing short distances and lots of cold starts, this is lay down misere, the most likely culprit for this alleged fuel dilution problem. It's probably not an injector problem or any other fuel delivery kind of problem, so that's nice. We'll get to how you tell in just a sec. But I'd suggest that if you are driving a lot less than usual, and plenty of us are, and if that's you, you should realise that this is hell on earth for engine oil. So instead of the typical 12-month sort of service interval where you change the oil and the filter every year on a particular date or before a particular date or something, you should go, light bulb moment, this is really hard for my oil. It's getting really contaminated, perhaps counterintuitively. Even though I've only driven a teeny weeny distance, I might change the oil twice as often and the filter, because that is the countermeasure here. And you put fresh oil in, you start the clock again on the dilution front, and then 6 months into it, you just go again. And then if normal programming of life is resumed sometime and you start driving long distances again, then go back to 12 months servicing, dude. Okay, so how do you tell? You could, of course, go to the dealership and get them to do investigation, but frankly, most new car dealers are bad at that, and you're going to be hampered by the problem that there's really no evidence of any defect in any of the components apart from this report. There's no rough running, there's no lack of power, there's no breakdown at high RPM, there's nothing of that nature that indicates you might have a fuel problem, okay? So I'd do this. I'd purchase another one of those lab test kits and I'd sit on it, and then I'd wait for the right day when life allows, and I'd go for a long drive. And by long drive, I mean I would drive for about 2 hours. And I wouldn't do much stopping in between, right? So I'd just get the engine up to its normal operating temperature in a sort of lean burn highway environment, and I'd just lope along at highway speeds of 80 to 100 for a couple of hours. I'd piss off somewhere with a view about an hour away, and I'd turn around and come back. And at that time, upon return, I'd decant another tiny little sample and send it off for analysis. And if it comes back clear, then you've got your own diagnosis, and it is bang on the money, dude. Because if you've got a faulty injector and it is overfueling, then it's overfueling all the time, right? So that's just going to keep diluting your oil more and more and more and more. But if you do this test and you send off another sample and it comes back clear, or it comes back friggin' 0.5% diluted or something, then there's your evidence. The dilution is caused by the mode of operation of the car, i.e. lots of cold starts, no opportunity for the oil to warm up to its normal operating temperature and evaporate off all of those contaminants, all of that fuel locked in there, and that water as well, if that's a problem also. So do the test, dude, and then get back to me and let me know how you go. But if you're just watching this for the sake of interest, I would say that if you're in the same position here and you're really not driving all that much because COVID, lockdown, work from home, getting the groceries delivered, whatever, then just take the time and do one of two things. Instigate a long distance drive once every 3 or 4 weeks. Just drive for a couple of 100 kilometres. Who knows? You might find it quite therapeutic. You could go on your own. You could pump up your own fat beats, a bit of Marilyn Manson, some kid rock, whatever, and then you could come back sort of mentally refreshed and your oil purified. And look, if that's all too hard and you really don't want to go there and do that, and you've turned into a complete hermit since we've been mandated to stay at home, you've gone, you know what, this is not too bad. If that's you, just change your oil twice as often, dude, because it might be pleasant for you to be operating in this way, but it's certainly not pleasant for your engine, and it is hell on earth for your oil. Sorry about the unscripted, rough and ready, terrible nature of this video. I hope the core information came through and that it is at least useful to you. Thanks a lot. I'll see you in a more prepared way tomorrow when I have a complete love-hate relationship with the new model year 22 Kia Sportage. I love it, but I also hate it. And we're going to do 10 things I love and 10 things I hate, and the hate is completely unvarnished, unlike every other motoring so-called journalist. So if you're on the cusp of choosing an SUV, you might want to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the publication of that one tomorrow.